just added 5 more people. First of all, thank you very much for coming here today. It's the next workshop I'm doing here on LinkedIn, and I have an amazing guest. I have been following Kristina for some time, and it's just such an inspiring journey as the lawyer, as the entrepreneur, as a startup founder, being here in Silicon Valley. And she's trying to demystify big law. She's also trying to learn how to automate it, to make it available for more people so she can scale. I really, really love her story. I think she's doing an incredible work, posting in different social medias. And I was really super inspired to do a call with her. And from my perspective, for people who don't know, I'm an early stage VC here in San Francisco. I'm investing in everything from future of work, future of education, fintech for the current fund too, Yellow Rocks. And we also have Proceed to Succeed, which is super early agnostic acceleration program. We give checks between 50 to 200K in early stages in Proceed to Succeed. And for the fund, our checks are usually 250 on Proceed, 500,000 on Seed, and up to 2 million on Series A. And I also work as an advisor with a super late stage company called 𝗍𝗏𝗏, helping them to raise 100 million. So I can understand how to raise super early money and super late money. And being in Silicon Valley, I used to work at Google, helping to sell cloud to big enterprise software. So I know really well.
Wow.
Maria, you were asking something? Oh, thank you for muting yourself. So I think my perspective as an early stage venture capital, and Kristina will be sharing her perspective as a lawyer. And I would love to make this session really interactive, helping for everybody. We will be doing Q&A between me and Kristina, but please feel free to raise your hand or leave a comment. So we would love to learn as we go. If you have any specific questions for particular areas, we will definitely address that. Kristina, can you please start with your journey, telling us about your story? How did you come to law, and what was your transition from big law to being a founder yourself? And yeah, would love to give you the stage. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Valerie, for hosting and inviting me. You've been a huge inspiration of mine. We need more women in venture capital and entrepreneurs. Definitely would love to share my story with you, and most importantly, being helpful. So make sure you leave your comments. So I will tailor information that I present to make sure your interests are addressed. So Kristina Subbotina, I've been a corporate lawyer for the past. Guys, do you mind muting yourself? Because we're also recording, and that will be like extra noise. Perfect. I think we muted everyone. So Kristina Subbotina, I've been a corporate lawyer for the past 8+ years, representing startups and also venture funds investing in startups throughout their life cycle, from formation, financings, day-to-day business operations, compliance, and exits. I've been working at 𝗥𝗶𝗀𝗹, which is a big law firm famous for work with startups. Prior to that, I worked at 2 venture-backed startups as their general counsel. And originally, I'm from Russia. So I immigrated in America in 2014, almost 10 years ago. And last year, I became a US citizen and decided to start my own law firm, Lolly, so I don't know which side. And this is the law firm that is focusing on representing startups and venture funds, exactly what I've been doing for 8+ years. And we provide high quality big law services at affordable and predictable rates. I have 2 associates, also ex-𝗏𝗏𝗏 working with me. And today I just hired executive assistant, chief of staff. So the team
congrats. Big deal.
Thank you. That's why I was late for our call, because I was finishing a call with her. And actually, she came from my social media, Instagram and LinkedIn. So social media is definitely super powerful. Yeah, so with my thing, I solved the issue of, the legal is very expensive and unpredictably expensive for startups, and especially painful for early stage startups, but also emerging fund managers, anything up to 100 million AUM. When you just a new fund manager, it's quite expensive to start your own fund, an SPV. So I help with that. That's why, because it's such a real problem for founders, that's why my law firm is doing well, because it's an obvious pain point. And I also share legal tips and my founder journey on LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, you name it. And I specifically love demystifying legal for founders, especially first-time founders, because they don't know when they have a problem until they have a problem. So I post those stupid TikToks and Instagram reels to attract that attention. And founders frequently say that, you know, they didn't know that they made that mistake, but because I made fun of them, that they binged on my content, and that's how we catch that mistake before it's too late. That's me in a nutshell. And I'm super excited to be here. I love hosting these events with my friends and colleagues to demystify both the business side and the legal side of venture capital, to help founders to raise money, to help venture investors raise money. Because at the end of the day, venture investors and startup founders, they're very much alike. Both of them have to raise money. It's just founders raise money from VCs raise money from LPs, and you know, LPs is just like wealthy people, endowments and stuff. So it's the journey of raising money from those who have the money, and the journey of growing your company or VC fund to the exit, to liquidity. Mm-hmm. So happy to start this conversation and kind of go and combine the legal aspects and venture capital aspects. That's why I think Valerie would be an incredible partner for this conversation.
Thank you, Kristina. And I also wanted to add two parts. First of all, what Kristina mentioned about social media. If you're a founder, if you're a fund manager, social media, it's incredibly important. You have to find your medium. Not everybody, I'm not sure the VCs are going to TikToks, even though there's some people who post about that. But as a founder, I think LinkedIn, it's a critical tool for your personal brand, for your company. You have to be there. It will allow you to connect with incredible people, networking, building your, you know, like the people who you will be raising from. And also, I think these days, especially because AI is taking over in a way, you have to develop your voice. I've started as a VC. I was also like not sure if I should be, you know, talking to people, posting, because, you know, as a venture capitalist, and it always felt like it was like a mental break, right? Like I cannot do this, people will judge me or something else. And it's been incredible. I've started posting actively last 4 months, and so many people, both founders, investors, LP, reaching out and say, hey, I love what you do. Let's connect. Let's share more. I'm literally having, yesterday, DeepMind from Google reached out to me and they said, hey, let's collaborate. I love what you're doing for AI. You will be amazed how powerful it is. And for every founder who's coming from overseas, it's not in every place is LinkedIn. It's like a place to go for your CV. I think you have to start, you have to develop and post there very actively. So from my perspective as a VC, I always tell for both VC world and the startups, you have to have a good lawyer. Because for me, if I want to invest in a company, the very first thing I will look at, where they incorporated, like how they're incorporated, who is in the cap table, like how is the company structured, who got the money, which share are like there. So there's a certain list, and Kristina will be able to cover. But for me, I will not invest in a company that doesn't understand how to start a company right. Because two things, we all want to make money at the end of the day. And I really want for founders to be motivated. I want to make sure that they actually have something at the end of the day once the company has an exit. And Kristina was talking a lot about that if you do mistakes in the beginning, at the end of the day, once you have an exit, everybody will get money, but you as a founder might not end up with anything. You will actually be more tax liable, especially in California. So it's so critical to discuss those pieces from early beginning, to review what you have. And then once you're getting on the later stages, it's negotiation, it's cap table, it's the best specific terms and conditions that you can push for as a founder, and also for us as an investor. We want to make sure we have a good dialogue between our lawyers and the startup lawyers. And in many cases, funds, they have more money, they have more, I would say, reach to have good lawyers. And for founders, they usually not always have money to be able to afford a good law firm, right? So what Kristina is doing, I think it's so important, and it's a big mission. And I also like that we're two women in this space, because they are less than 2% investors. And if you looked at my LinkedIn 2 days ago, there was a new unicorn in the female space called 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗍𝗏𝗏. They work specifically for women health. And whenever I talk to people in the room, they're like, oh, period trackers, what is it? People will they will leave the room, but it's a unicorn. So what I'm trying to say, half of the world, which is women products, are still unaddressed. So if you're building something like that, I'm just encouraging you to go and start building in that space. Okay, Kristina, I have a couple of questions. I think let's start with the basic things, all right? Evaluating VC fundings. I think in your previous workshops, you were covering like VC, non-VC. Like when would you recommend to actually go for VC fundings and when you will advise otherwise?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And it's actually the first question that I usually discuss with founders. That they come to me, they're like, I want to start a company, and I have a startup launch package for primarily venture-backed startups. When you you have an idea, you want to raise venture funding, how do you start? How do you issue equity to make sure that the investors have somewhere to put the money? And the first question I ask is, what is the idea? Is it built to scale? Or is it built to slowly grow the revenue? So examples like my law firm, it's non-venture backed. It could be a unicorn, it could be Fortune 500 companies, but it's not a venture backed business. I'm providing services. Although my product company where I develop legal tech, that is venture backable business. So you need to understand whether the idea that you have, it could be big, the market could be big, it could scale because of the technology, for example. And if you are, I don't know, you want to open a bakery shop or like services business, then venture might not be the best place to fundraise, because venture investors, and Valerie, you know it the best, they expect like a huge return. 90% of venture investments, they go to zero to some minimal amount, and then like 10% or 20% is going to be a big win. So those investors, they're looking for that big win, and in order to have a big win in 10 years, that idea has to scale, or has to have the ability, even in early stages, that you can see that it is able to scale. And it's totally fine to build non-venture back business. Warren Buffett is very successful and he's not a venture investor. But it's important to understand what are you trying to do, because the way you're going to be building your business and the sources of capital are different. So for a regular business, let's say my law firm, right? Bootstrapping, number one, obviously. Taking a business loan, maybe angel money, because I'm kind of playing with the technology. But if I take the venture money, I would be expected to grow every month at a certain percentage. And every year we'll need to fundraise. So every year I would need to demonstrate like crazy growth. And if I'm not, I can't raise, it means I die as a company. So venture capital model really pushes you to go fast and either make it big or die. So if you just focusing on building the business that brings the revenue, grows, I don't know, at 10% a year or 20% a year, it's going to be great business for you, right? Financial freedom, you're an entrepreneur, but that might not be attractive to a venture investor, and they will be pushing you to go more aggressive and harder. And it's better for them if you just like die fast than you like at that zombie startup that for 5 years doesn't do much. So that's number one. And that honest conversation with yourself, what you want to build, leads to who will be your investors, and the answer to that leads to what kind of structure would be good for you. So if you want to raise venture money, in 99.9% of cases, I recommend doing a Delaware C Corp. Why? Because investors expect that, and there are very few exceptions when you would do, let's say, Delaware LLC. And I'm just going to briefly touch, because it's more complex and deep topic. But for those founders who are repeat founders, they know what they're doing. They have money to spend more on legal, on accounting, and all of the complications. They can maximize the thing called qualified small business stock, QSBS. That's the thing that all founders should know about. Whether you're a first-time founder, you have no idea. Whether you're a second or third-time founder, you have to know that. Because at exit, you wouldn't pay a federal capital tax gain. which could be hundreds of millions of dollars. It's so, so important. And investors, not only you, but your investors will get those benefits. There are certain requirements you need to satisfy. First, the stock has to be issued out of corporation, not LLC. Then the company has to have less than 50 million in assets. Then you have to avoid doing certain repurchases of stock to not mess it up. So the requirements are not that crazy, but if you start your company, let's say as an LLC, and that's very common, and then you convert it improperly, or you convert it once your company has more than $50 million in assets, you don't have that benefit. You have to pay federal capital tax gain. And you can even Google, like the 𝗟𝗶𝗴𝗹 mistake. For example, founder of 𝗟𝗶𝗴𝗹 and his investors, they lost $75 million. The workshop that I did last time, 𝗟𝗲𝗴𝗹, his general partner of Hustle Fund, he lost millions of dollars on that. He didn't convert. So, but there is a wrinkle that you can start as an LLC and convert into a C Corp and actually maximize that benefit, because that benefit is basically 10x of your investment in stock, up to $10 million. But if you, let's say, like the most complex structure, you can start as an LLC, you can reach almost but not reach $50 million in assets, then you convert into C Corp, and then you will maximize your benefits up to $500 million. But again, I would recommend that only for 0.1% of founders who know exactly what they're doing and willing to spend more on that structure, because it's complex. And if you mess it up, you lost the whole thing. And another requirement for QSBS is 5-year holding period. So you have to hold your stock for 5 years. So if you start as an LLC, that clock doesn't start. So let's imagine you sold your stock in 4 years, you don't get the benefit. So the sooner you start C Corp, the sooner your QSBS clock starts, and it means that you would be able to sell your stock sooner. So I kind of touched very deep topic.
Yeah.
99% of founders starting as a Delaware C Corp is the way to go if you want to raise venture money. Investors will push you for that, and investors expect that. Investor council will expect that. If you have Florida LLC, good luck. They will force you to convert. So it's better to do it the right way from the beginning. But if you're a services business, not venture-backed, it's okay to be a Florida LLC, because who cares? You're the boss. Once you raise venture money, you kind of hired your first boss, right? They will be pushing you on things. Yeah. So this is the difference in the structure. And I have a startup launch package for those who want to start venture-backed startup. It's 2.3K. It includes everything you need to know, like issuance of stock, EIN, equity incentive plan, all of the templates for hiring your employees, consultants, advisors, and the data room that is ready to share with investors. So you can go from 0 to 1 like that.
Thank you, Kristina. This is really awesome. I like how you start big and then went to really specific details. And yes, Kristina has those packages where she helps. I think from my perspective as a VC, and I think, let me just touch up a little bit on fundraising when we started, when you need and when you don't need VC. VC money can be blessing or it can be a chore. Sometimes if you choose the investors, the investor relationship can last longer than the marriage. I'm like seriously telling you, it's a really long process. And you want to make sure it's not just the money, it's the connections. It's almost like you aligned on the spirit. People understand and they want to be behind you, because in venture, things can go bad. There can be down rounds, things can go bad. We have one portfolio company was focusing on NFT and metaverse, which was great 2 years ago. And then pretty much they came to us and say, hey, we're dead. There's nothing happening. And they started a different product, something around that, but it's more on the AI space. And we pretty much give them money again because we believed in them. So it's really important to have that good relationship with smart money, and also good relation, like good just trust between who you're working with. And I think for us, as Kristina mentioned, venture capital sits somewhere in the middle. If you go down, You have angel syndicates. It's a group of angels. You have specific angels. It's people who just have money. They can give you smaller checks. And then there's friends, family, and fools. It's early people who can give you a lot of money. And I actually teach the whole course about how to fundraise. So before going to venture, you can go to friends, family, and fools. Then you can go to angels, and then you can go to angel syndicates. And also there's another layer, which is called acceleration programs, like, YC, there's Skydeck in Berkeley. There's a lot of them. And maybe for your specific business, you can choose, maybe there's a healthcare focus, or it's enterprise or B2B SaaS. So look for those acceleration programs. They will teach you how to do the startup. And also they can give you the first checks. And then you go to venture capital. And venture capital can be private money, like our fund. We manage our own money and money of a group of investors called LPs. And then there's also can be corporate venture funds like Microsoft or Amazon. They have their own VC divisions, and usually they manage money of this big corporation. And then there's also like something in between. For example, Andreessen Horowitz is managing like a private fund, but I think they also have some corporate investors who are kind of putting the money in a bigger pot. And then if you're moving later from the VCs, private or CVCs, corporate, there's also family offices. And then the last one is sovereign funds, which is funds for the countries. Usually it's much later stages, but these days they're all trying to catch up with the AI. And I see sovereign funds going into kind of earlier stages to invest. And I also want to talk a little bit about family offices. I think it's the best spot. So family offices, you can translate them as wealthy people. Family office is just a different, beautiful name of the structure. They usually have their endowments, they have succession planning, they have often philanthropy arms. So it's a group of, it's almost like a fund that they manage, which is called family offices. And why they're sometimes better than VC? Because they manage their own money. If you lose it, it's so much easier for them to say, hey, like, we have good relationship. Can you understand my situation? Plus, they will not push you as much as a venture capital, because for us, yes, we have a timeline. We have to have a company that scales fast or dies fast, because that's the nature of the business. We need to show returns for our own investors. But family office, they have less pressure in that sense. And if one family office likes you, they will show you to the couple of their friends who are also big family offices, and you can find the whole group. Sometimes it's called single family offices or multiple family offices. They can be managed under one umbrella. And if you find that, that's your gold mine. Like, keep them as the best friends you can, because I'm just giving an advice as a VC that there are other ways how to raise money. And also in San Francisco, the median salary for an engineer here, and there's like hundreds of thousands of them, it's $300,000 to $500,000. So pretty much every second person in a coffee shop, or everybody who works at Google, Apple, and Nvidia, especially if they've been a couple of years, their stock is vesting really well. They have a lot of money and they want to invest. And a lot of people here understand venture capital, and they will be willing to give you from 5 to 100K as angels. So don't forget about that as well. A lot of people just focused on venture funds, but there's so many ways how you can get the first money. And I think, so that's kind of like a high level. So Kristina, let's also talk about when you start a company, what are the basic steps you want to do, like in the very beginning? And then the second part, once you start fundraising and talking about data room, which you touched a little bit. So like early on to the fundraising. And the last part I wanted to say, Delaware, we all look for that because it's easy, understandable, taxes and everything. But once you're moving to the later stage, I see very often you get pushed into Caymans. A lot of later stage funds, and they want to have you outside of the US because tax reasons are much, much bigger. So don't be surprised if you start hearing it if somebody are in a later stage. And can I also ask you to put comments if you're early stage, late stage, are you fundraising or you just thinking? So we kind of get the feeling who is in the room, and we can also tailor it for this to make it really valuable for all of you. Thank you.
Yeah.
So, Kristina, can you touch a little bit like where to start, like the basic things and preparing for fundraising and data room?
Yeah, sounds good. One question I wanted to actually ask you, Valerie, like, because I like this question. What is the expectation for growth after investment? Because that kind of differentiates the venture-backed, non-venture-backed. What do you see? I know that there is no one answer, but I know there is like a perfect, number, magical number.
It's a really good question. And I would say it depends on a stage. And also I see a lot of good businesses, like my friends have real businesses and they are good businesses, but they're not venture. Venture, if you look at the term, it's the ability to scale really fast. And usually it's software because it's so much easier to tweak and kind of expand. Even though when you said for your company, for 𝗟𝗲𝗡𝗍, like your engineering piece, that's the venture-backed story if you're planning to raise there. I think for us, if it's pre-seed and early seed, it's not just the growth. We want to, of course, we see projections, right? We see that they're planning to grow X, Y, Z, but it's on the early stage, it's really hard to predict. So when you're investing in pre-seed and seed, it's we want them to double, triple every couple of months. But let's say maybe they're focusing on the product. It really depends if they raise maybe first 1 to 3 million and they want to spend this money into finishing product, or maybe they want to hire salespeople, or maybe they want to, I don't know, expand into specific partnership. It really depends how they want to spend this money and the growth we expect. But ideally, I mean, 2 to 3x within a year would be great.
Yeah. So that's why you need to scale, right? Like if you grow 20%, which will be good for normal business, if you don't have that edge, just there's no way you can scale. Like there is no way I can scale my law firm beyond like hours that people put into work. So the technology would be able to. Okay, I see the comments. I think we are mostly early stage.
Yes. And some people raised first money already. I also think if we have some time for Q&A, we can choose a few people and really review your cases and ask directly legal questions if you're not sure about something or you would love to change anything. I think it's the time to have like deep dive cases from this group as well.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, so let's just then talk about how to prepare for fundraising. Whether you are just starting out, whether you already raised, because you have to raise all the time. And maybe I can touch on the legal, like how to prepare for investor due diligence. And Valerie, you can talk about things like what do startups need to prepare from the business financial perspective. Story. So from the legal perspective, it really comes down to a couple of things. If you're just starting out, like if you're just starting the startup, you need to set up the Delaware C Corp, you need to issue equity to the founders and IP to the company. That's really important. You need to file 83B election. Then every person who provides services to the company, consultant, advisor, employee, you have to sign a consulting agreement or employer agreement. And the key here is the IP assignment. So everyone who provides services to the company has to assign the IP. Because in early stages, what I frequently see, founder divorces, consultants suing the company for money. Just a week ago, I was in a situation, consultant built the platform, nothing has been signed, and they're asking for 500K, like half of the round. And they're like, I'm not going to sign the IP without that. And no investor would invest $1 million into or any amount into a startup with this ambiguity when it comes to IP. So these things have to be checked. And it's amazing when you put everything in organized manner in a data room. And I will send you in the comments a free checklist for your data room so you know how to organize it. So that's number one. Then the question is like, you already have a startup. How do you prepare for investor due diligence? And I actually have the investor due diligence checklist as well. So I'm just going to post it here so you can guys go ahead and download. It's the same thing. You need to check that you have the, you assign the IP, everyone has the equity issued. If you already been doing the business for a while, make sure all of the equity grants to employees, consultants, and advisors are papered up. It so often happens when founder says, yes, I issued equity to my consultant. And I'm like, okay, give me the documents. They sell me consulting agreement or offer letter. I'm like, give me the stock issuance documents. They're like, and I did it on Carta. And I'm like, and give me the stock issuance documents. They just think that because you promised equity, that's done. They think because you put it on Carta, that's done. You need to have equity incentive plan, and you need to have actual stock purchase agreement or stock option agreement. And another thing that happens, sometimes people even have that agreement, but I'm like, did the board approve that? And they're like, board? What are you talking about? All of the equity issuances, and that's very serious, they have to be approved by the board. So if you just gave someone equity, but the board hasn't approved it, we can't ratify that. It doesn't work backwards. You can't backdate that. I actually had a story. I was representing a venture fund at the end of last year. We were doing investor due diligence. They were leading the round. And the founder in the data room, he didn't put any legal documents. He put like the beautiful pitch decks and like all of the, like customer testimonials. I'm like, where's the actual documents? And he was very hesitant to send it. And then I started pushing, I'm like, okay, in corporation, we realized the cap table was all messed up. He had backdated documents because he properly didn't approve stock grants. And backdating the documents is the worst that could happen because, first of all, it's illegal, but second, it shows the founder integrity. That if you are not only messy, but you're untruthful, that's a red flag because it kind of translates to everything else that you do. And I advised the VC fund not to invest. They were going to invest $1 million, but it was so messy. And the backdating part that came out. And when we asked the founder directly, like, did you backdate? They're like, oh no, we just attached their own document. But I'm like, this is very obvious. You attached the same document with 2 different dates. And you were not smart enough to even remove one document. So there is the question of integrity and the common sense. Exactly. And just like if you're a criminal, no, I mean, not a criminal, I'm kidding. But if you're lying, like, but you also not doing it properly, yeah, there are many concerns. So the question came in, the board resolution and stock option purchase agreement created and signed through 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, would they be counsel? So yes, if there is board resolution approving the stock issuance or stock option issuance, there is the actual agreement through 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, yes, everything should be right. And for stock options, you need 409A evaluation. So that's also important. When you just start in the company, when you issue stock to founders, for example, that's fine. When you issue stock to early employees before you raise significant amount, that's fine. But once you raise, I would say at least 500K, just go ahead and obtain 409A evaluation. So there is no possibility that the IRS could come back and say, actually, the value of stock is higher. You don't want to have that risk. And you can obtain 409A evaluation through 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 or other providers. So these are the 4 things I would add 409A evaluation to your list note.
Mm-hmm.
So the kind of the summary of all of this is the clean cap table. The most important thing that investor will be doing, and especially when you're a lead investor, I frequently represent lead investors investing in startups like A16Z, Pantera, 776. You want to match cap table with the board consents and all of the agreements. And it's frequently not matched. You have one thing that you promised, but you didn't issue. You thought you issued, but you didn't actually issue. And so all of that mess, it's really expensive to fix. And one piece of advice that I would give you, don't do your own cap table. I'm saying that because even I make mistakes in the cap table because it's such a tedious process. At 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 and at 𝗏𝗀𝗏𝗏𝗏 as well, we had the system that at least 2 people review the cap table entries when we make them, because it's guaranteed that if me doing that, I know what I'm doing, I will make at least 1 typo. And it's going to be like some stupid typo, like I wouldn't add acceleration, because when you add in a lot of people, it's just hard. We're humans. Then my paralegal goes and reviews, and she would find with fresh eyes something. And at 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, we do the same thing. Even if my junior associate did it, or like I did it, my junior associate will review after me, because it's not about being like smart. It's about like catching the human error. So my advice would be to not do your cap table. You want to save money, I understand. but I've never seen a cap table done by a client with no mistakes, like ever in my life. I always, even in my work of like my junior and senior associate, I find at least one mistake when I review it. So, okay, this is
let me add a real quickly VC perspective from this side, also to answer the questions. First of all, Kristina, thank you very much. It's I think it's a lot. People also asking like where to go, and it can be overwhelming. I think I will try to simplify it. If you're raising on the early stage, what is expected, right? Like when you start fundraising, there's a data room. First of all, put your data room in DocSign, like not DocuSign, DocSign. It's by, I think, Dropbox. It's a tool which will allow you to track everybody who opens, which page they're looking at, like what emails, who is looking at. It's so important. I'm using it all the time whenever I'm fundraising or I'm doing any deals, because I can literally see there's somebody new who's coming and focusing on page 4, 5, and 7. I can respond, say, hey, I saw you were looking at our cap table, or you were looking at something else. It's such a powerful tool for you to have this insider view. It's very inexpensive. So no data rooms without data analytics. You have to track it all. So first super important rule.
What is the name of this, Valerie? It's
called DocSign. It's by Zoom. I will send it to you. This is the most powerful thing you can use. DocSign. I will just share it with you. It's not DocuSign. It's DocSign by Dropbox. I will send the link here. Dropbox.
This is super helpful because I create the data rooms for clients, and I agree with you. The analytics would be super helpful. So
yep. Let me just connect it. Why is it not showing it to me? 1 second. I will just get it for you.
And while you're looking for that, I wanted to add, like Valerie said, DocSend, yes.
Oh, sorry, DocSend, yes, DocSend, yes, DocSend. It just somehow doesn't want to show it to me. Yes, DocSend.
Yeah, like
very good. Yes, I'm sending a link here. A lot of people don't know this, but it will save you time, nerves, and you will just see who is watching it, like who is resharing it to each other. And you can also stop downloading, like you can just block so nobody can download it. It means they will have to open and review it, and you will see every second where they were paying attention. So then if you do a data room, depends if you have a lot of IP to protect or if it's very technical. I usually split it into a few areas, like it's a level 0 or level 1, the data room that you can view without NDA or without term sheets, right? Something that you kind of want to open publicly. Usually it's the deck. And these days, I'm also doing it myself, deck with narration. You can put a voice over the deck so people download it and they can just click play and somebody will read the deck for them. It's really, really nice, and it helps to explain your businesses as well. And for example, for the company I'm working with, which is Neuroscience, we used AI-generated voice of 𝗟𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, who talks about nature and science, and it's so beautiful. People just love this little geeky touch. And you can choose Elon Musk, you can choose your favorite person who can read your deck for the investor. It's really, people kind of love it. It's just a little, like a geeky thing of Silicon Valley. So
and
your basic
have this feature, right? Like that
no, it's not DocSend. You have to just go put narration on the decks. It's the specific services, but they're not expensive and they're really easy to use. So your very basic data room will have your deck, and then depends. If you're super early, I just need to see that you're, legal incorporation. I mean, I would say it's even second stage. First stage, you need to have projections, maybe about your team, some business planning, and like, of course, people understand that you have a good legal. But then the second stage, you need to have everything: incorporation, good standing, like CVs of your team. And then, of course, everything legal. It will be, I would usually put it on the protected data room, which has a password, and I would not give it to everybody. You don't need to show it to everybody in the very first kind of interaction. And then the second part, people were asking, what is a lead investor? People might not know. So lead investor, let's say you're raising $1 million, for example. Lead investor is somebody who usually puts the majority of money, and often it's a bigger name. It's somebody who will say, yes, I trust this company. Here's, let's say, $500,000 from $1 million, and then other people adding something else. Or maybe it can be 100,000 from $1 million, and then other people are much smaller. And very often, if you have a lead investor, especially if you have something where you need due diligence or deeper legal analysis, Or if you messed it up and you didn't have Kristina, we will sometimes as a VCs buy audit services. So we pay additional company to go inside, do technical due diligence, do legal due diligence, and tell us how many mistakes you make and how expensive it will be to fix it as well. So there's services. And the later stages are, the more deeper and more expensive those investigations are. So very often lead investor is the one who buys those services or spend a lot of time to go deeper. And then sometimes they will even share it with other investors, say, hey, we've done it, we paid for it because we put the biggest check, we take the biggest risks. So you really want to make sure you work closely with legal and try to avoid mistakes. There's so many things, like, it's just like, I want to cry because they're hurting themselves. Founders are hurting themselves if you do it wrongly. And I want to believe that Kristina, I just really love this demystification, and she tried to automate it. She tried to make it affordable for founders to have that. So for me as a VC, I want a good lawyer in the teams I'm investing in, because we will be working together. It's a team. And one last thing, in the US,
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I said in the US, I always joke that your two best friends, it's a dentist and a lawyer. The older you get, like as a company, people can sue you. They're like, will be unhappy customers. Maybe, competitors will try to get try to sue you or something. In a lot of corporate companies, it's a benefit. You have a health benefit, like, dentist and everything, and you have a legal protection benefit. So if somebody tries to sue you, company will pay you for the lawyers. So also having somebody who can, maybe it's not Kristina who will defend you, but at least you say, hey, I know this case, I can send you to this lawyer. She will connect you to specific areas to protect you, your business, your IP, and at the end, your money. And also together with a good lawyer, get yourself a good CPA and a financial planner, because once people starting companies, it's all rosy and beautiful. We want to create unicorns. But once you get into unicorns, people are like, oh my God, I'm getting $20 million in my account and I will pay in taxes half of it, or 60% or 70% of it. So you have to plan in advance where you receive money, how you receive money. So taxes, it's huge. California taxes us really strongly. So don't forget about connecting with CPA and even wealth manager once you're planning in a very early stage. Kristina, we're 10 minutes to go, 12 minutes. Let's maybe go over questions. Please share the link for pitch narration service.
The pitch narration service.
Okay, I will try, because it was my technical team who did that. I was not putting the narration there, but yeah, I can, I will do a follow-up post about this, and I will share the links to DocSend, the narration to make it valuable. And also Kristina will send her packages here. Let me just quickly go through questions to see that if there's something interesting to address. Kristina, have you picked something that people were asking specifically? Can you define capped and uncapped simple way, please?
Capped and uncapped. Yeah. So I understand that you're talking about capped and uncapped safes. So a simple agreement for future equity, that's a way to raise money without kind of valuing your company. But sophisticated investors, they usually don't invest in uncapped safes because they want the valuation. And uncapped, usually it's like 10-20% discount, meaning when the safe converts, it will be a 10 or like 20% discount from the price of the round. And usually like friends, fools and angels, they do that. But venture investors, they would want a capped safe, meaning there is a valuation for them, although it's not a priced round, but they know no matter how much money you raised, they will get this percentage of equity. And especially like now the market is post-money capped safe. So that's the YC safe that you can download. And in terms of valuation cap, we didn't address, but that's kind of how you define your dilution, how much you're going to raise, what valuation, because usually you raise, you want to sell at each round of financing from 10 to 20%, not more than that. And you want to remain the majority ownership of your company until Series B. So that's why you need to calculate, like say, if you raise 1 million at 10 million post money, you just sold 10% of the company. And so you know approximately how much you are able to raise and that amount of money until when it's gonna last.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Another question, how to navigate the valuation discussion? And we can cover it from both sides, from a, like, let's say founder, and I can cover from VC if you like.
Yeah, let's do it. You start.
I think there's two ways, right? Sometimes I think when it also depends on the market. If the market is sometimes, you know, it's like a buyer's market or seller market. It's similar with real estate. For example, YC, right? YC, Y Combinator, super popular, super famous. They changed in the last year or two. There are hundreds of startups. As a VC, I have literally 2 minutes. I'm listening to pitches. I mean, of course, smart way. I know people before the graduation, but I'm telling like how like majority investors will do it. You have 2 minutes. People have nothing. They have a pitch deck. They have like maybe a barely scrapped team, and they're like, oh, with something AI, like, you know, sell me pen. It has AI. Something like that. And they want like 20 million, 30 million, sometimes 40 million valuation. It's crazy. And they get money. Sometimes they get money on that just because there's a big brand, YC. For me, like, I'm almost like not looking into that because it's overpriced. Like, for me, I think it's too expensive because this brand drives the hype. So as an investor, I want to have a fairly priced company, right? So it's not too expensive, not too cheap. I want to also... So, but once I invest, then I want to have the highest valuation, because for me, it's important to raise for the next round. So you see, you kind of want to be kind of on both sides. I would say right now, the market is more investors market. So, you know, a lot of companies die, it's harder to fundraise. So we see lower valuations and we can push for lower valuations in a way. But at the same time, once companies in the portfolio, I will do my best to have a highest reasonable valuation, because it's also, you know, dilutions, who gets what at the end of the day. You want to make sure you're not making too high of a valuation, and Kristina can cover it in more detail. So it's a delicate play of finding almost like the perfect pricing for your company. And it's very much depends on the market situation. Like 2-3 years ago, valuations were crazy. And these days, anything AI, it's crazy valuations as well, which might not be a good thing for you in the long term.
Yeah, that's true. Valuations in 2021, 2022, like the beginning was crazy. Now they come down. Just to give you like specific number, maybe like a range that I see, depends also where you are, whether you're in Texas or in Silicon Valley. In Silicon Valley, for your first round for seed, I haven't seen anything like below 6 million, right? So it's like 6-12 million, I think, would be the range from what I've seen for your first round, because we have a lot of early stage. Valerie, what about you? What have you seen? Is it a fair statement, 6-12?
Yeah, it's also like, I mean, I don't want to say, yes, I think it's a fair statement, but it's also depends if there's like a really cool tag, if there's a protected IP, or maybe, you know, it can be, for example, with these days with AI, if you have unique data sets that nobody else is having, because most of the LLM, they're building an open source, right? Everybody can have access to Reddit or YouTube. But let's say if you are, I don't know, you're selling amazing tables, or like you're working with the hardware or something, you have data set that nobody else has, you can have higher valuation because you have something special in your company. So it's really, I would say depends, right?
Valerie, I think highlighted the most important thing to answer the question. How the valuation is set by the demand. If you're a hot startup, you can drive up your valuation.
Yes.
Just make sure when you do that, make sure you don't harm yourself in terms of like, can you raise that valuation moving forward, so there's no down round, which is demoralizing and also has legal consequences.
Yeah, and it looks bad that you managed to raise in a super high and then you have to go down, so it doesn't look like this. Yeah, there are complications about that. I think we're literally 5 minutes to go. Let's open the floor. We have so many people. Please, like, you can even unmute yourself and say, hey, this is my case. I'm building a startup. I have this specific question, or somebody's trying to negotiate down with me. I think it's also really important to touch, once you get this investor, of course, there's a classic legal things, but what investor can ask you and what you can, like, what do you want to have? For example, for us, we want to have pro rata. Pro rata, it means we have the right to invest moving forward. And this is fundamental, because once you get into like later stages and you become too hot, you don't want like your early investors sometimes, because let's say Sequoia is investing and they will literally try to remove you from cap table. But for us as an investors, we want to be able to give you more money. You will be amazed, like people will try to give you money once you're hot, and not everybody will let you do that. So for me, I think pro rata, I would love to have it. And Kristina, you can share on that. And also, I mean, I would like to have, if not the board seat, but at least observer seat. It means I see what's happening in the company. We as an investors, like we don't do spray and pray. We have less companies, but we want to see exactly what's happening to help and also to mitigate risk. If we see companies going down, and say, hey, how can I help you? Do you need help in hiring or tech or recruiting? So it's really important to have this visibility for me. Those are like very high level, two important things I'm trying to negotiate. And maybe Kristina can share what you don't want to allow your investors to have.
Yeah, like we always, like when I'm on the investor side, obviously I fight for the startup or for the investor. When I'm on the startup side, I fight for the startup. But here are the pros and cons. Like if I'm on the startup side, I would give pro rata only to major investors. Like,
yes.
And I would set certain threshold, like if you invest at least 500K or $1 million, depending on like what is the round, right? And I would enforce it strictly. Otherwise, every small investor wants pro rata. And Valerie, as you correctly noted, when the startup becomes hot, it's actually really hard to navigate that relationship because everyone wants to invest. But as a startup, you want to bring new investors who bring not only money, but connections and value. And you got everything that you could from your existing investors.
Yeah.
Like not to be to sound bad, but like you already exhausted their resources. You need the new resources to grow. So you want to have space on the cap table. And I've had like some really hard negotiations with investors when we're like, you know, the startup not going to survive if you're going to continue investing. Can you just stop at this percentage? So be very careful with giving pro rata rights. It can hurt you. And observer seat as well. I'm really hesitant when on the startup side because yeah, they can't vote, but they can talk and they really can sway opinions of the board. So I also reserve it only for the leads and kindly saying like, thank you, no, thank you. And also it depends on what investors. Sometimes like when the investors have reputation, right? Some you don't want to give them any board observer or board seat, especially because they don't have a good reputation. But for some people, obviously, you know, like if it's an incredible investor, you want them on the board. One thing also to note, those investors who just like fight for those rights, but they don't invest much, I would be careful.
Yeah, you don't want that. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I've seen recently, and I kind of really liked it. So there's a new company we invested, it's called 𝗥𝗶𝗀𝗍𝗏. Little advertisement, they're fantastic. And they give you an example. They got a lead investor from Tulsa, Oklahoma. It was a Kaiser family and also Kennedy family. Very interesting. And they gave them money and they say, hey, we give you the money. Would you like to also come and live in Tulsa? Free housing, free offices. They're like, why not? So they moved out of California. Very low burn, no expenses on office, no living expenses. In California, rent is crazy. And they built almost 3 million revenue company with 7 people. And what they've done, they have really good board. I just love how they are really frugal. And as an investor, I just really respect that. So they treat our money really well. So they have 2 boards. I just was literally yesterday on the board. They have a more open board with observer seats. And like I'm an observer seat there and I'm listening like major updates. And then they have a closed board, like just for the lead investors and like people who are very like active, they get the biggest checks and they also contribute, they bring value like Kennedy family and Kaiser family. So I'm not invited there and it's okay. I see majority of what's happening with the company and then the smaller group discuss things that I might like, I don't need to be there. So it's great for them and great for me. So they found this blended board and they just literally stay at the end and say, hey, thank you everybody. Now it's the closed mission. Can you please leave the call? And they do it. So I really love how it's done. It's kind of worked for both founder and the VC.
Yeah, I agree. So you see, there are always both sides. That's why having a good lawyer that knows what is market, what is not, is good because you don't want to kind of like say yes to something that is not market, but you also don't want to say no to something that is market. So you want to be sophisticated and prepared for negotiating.
Yeah. Kristina, let's do the last call and we need to wrap up because I want to be mindful of people's time. Pick something if there's something you see that worth answering or worth maybe like the last one with the startup. LP seems to be harder to find. Any last questions, something really specific that we can use wisely Kristina's time?
Maybe the co-founder divorce. Yeah, that the co-founder has 1 year cliff, 4-year vesting, living in 10 months. So
Okay.
I guess the founder hasn't passed the cliff. So legally speaking, they're not entitled to anything. But you still want to give that founder something. It's very good idea to do that before fundraising, because once that founder sees the money, the conversations will start. I really hope that you guys, that founder assigned the IP to the company. That's the most important thing. And then it's a question that he's not entitled to anything. You fire him and that's it. But if you want to give him something, it's whatever you feel is right. And be careful with that equity. Like, you don't want to have a person with 5% on the cap table that is no longer providing value to the company. So I'd say anything up to 5% or like 4%, whatever the contribution you think was.
I would say 1 to 3%. I'm more kind of frugal on that. It depends on the contribution. And these days, when you have those early investors, I think it's so important. We see a lot of secondaries. So there's primaries and secondaries. Very simply, primaries, you give the money, you get the shares. Secondaries, you buy somebody's ownership. It can be an early investor, angel, it can be funds. So as the founder, you need to be open to secondaries, and very often it's like liquidity. Let's say you're going to B, C, D, or pre-IPO. People do secondaries to clean up the cap table. I've seen 700 people on the cap table pre-IPO company, which was crazy. So they had to do major buyout of those secondaries to have, let's say, less than 20 people. Because once you go to the IPO, and it's a very different conversation, you want to have this transparency, no bad names, no bad actors, just make sure you have the right people who will go with you the long way. And plus it provides also money for the investors, and also it's liquidity for your team. Once you're, in the longer run, you want to motivate people. For example, after COVID, people were doing some small secondary rounds just to give people, support to the families. It was hard, like on mental health for after COVID. So there are other things. I think we're running out of time. I want to just wrap it up a little bit and do a little bit of a promotion and advertisement. Please do reach out to Kristina. She is incredible. As a VC, I really want people like her to be in the team with the founders to make sure they do everything right and avoid mistakes and save you a lot of money. And on my side, I'm a VC. If you're building a startup in future of work, future of education, fintech, please do reach out. And I'm also will be doing more workshops about fundraising, advising how to find LPs, how to talk to family offices. And the next one will be in a week talking about how to start on LinkedIn. A lot of people asking me like how to break this mental barrier, start posting. So we'll be covering that as well.
And my client is actually here. It's so funny.
Again?
My actual client is
here.
Oh, yes.
It's really, really amazing. So thank you for being here. I hope it was valuable. Kristina, thank you so much for sharing your energy, your wisdom, and please, once the post is done, please comment there, because you can also connect to other people and you can bring your light of your company. Like, people will see you, because I have almost 100K views on the post and people will see what you're building. So thank you so much, everybody, and have a nice rest of the day or night, whenever you are.
Thank you, Valerie. That was
incredible. And we will share recording as well after that.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Yes, see you later.
Thank you.